Welcome to the Black Mirror Podcast.
Join host Ho-Ho as he discusses the riveting Netflix original series,
Black Mirror. Now, here he is, Ho-Ho-Ho.
Broadcasting from the Kata Studio, welcome to Black Mirror Podcast, and as always, I am your host, Ho-Ho. So how y'all's doing? I hope you're doing good, I really do. So this episode, we are discussing episode 3 of season 4, entitled Crocodile. Now this one, it goes a little dark. It really does. It goes a little dark, a little disturbing. Good episode. And it's kind of got some elements in it that reminds me of an episode back in season 1 entitled The Entire History of You. Now granted, it is a completely different type of technology. It's used completely different. You know, the technology that they used in season 1 was an accurate representation of what actually happened. You know, recorded, straight from the eyes, from the ears. This one is a little different. They use something called a recaller, I believe is what it's called. Let me kind of look. Yes, a recaller. And this one is a little bit more subjective, kind of like how our memories actually are, a little bit more subjective. And how well you recall something depends on your emotional connection, all kinds of other things. It's a little bit different, but still a very intriguing way on how they utilize this. It was definitely intriguing and very reminiscent of that episode back in season 1. But there's a couple different things I want you to ask yourself during the course of this episode, okay? If no one is around and you commit a crime, would you cover it up? Or would you do the right thing? And if you chose to keep that secret and cover it up, how far would you go? How far would you go to keep your secret? That's what I want you to ask yourself. Now, this one, just like most every other episode here in Black Mirror Podcast, spoiler alert, absolutely, we're going to be talking about the episode itself, okay? Definite spoiler alert. So this sucker happens, okay? You have two people in a vehicle. They just get done leaving a club. They do some illegal drugs while they're at this club. And while going to wherever their destination is, the driver isn't paying enough attention and accidentally hits a cyclist. Nobody's around. Nobody's there to see the crime. And so they make the decision, mainly him, and she goes along with it, the passenger. They decide to cover it up. Hey, nobody's seen it. Let's just cover it up. We have... I don't want to go to prison. It's not going to be good for me. Illegal drugs. Let's just cover it up. And then this story goes 15 years after the fact. Now, the driver has some issues, okay? Alcohol abuse. He never really recovers psychologically from what he did, from the crime that he committed. Never really recovered from it. He has no wife, has no kids. I mean, his life is, falling apart, and he's really trying to, make amends with his past, with his choices. And he makes a decision. I'm going to come clean to the widow. I'm going to come clean to her. She has a right to know what happened, or at least that her husband is never coming home. She has a right to know this. And the passenger who was with him disagrees. And right here you have kind of a big difference between the two. He has nothing to lose. But she has a lot to lose. She has a successful career. She is an engineer. She has a husband, a nice house, a kid. She has a lot more to lose because what she's afraid of is this contact is going to force some kind of an investigation, and they're going to find out what their crime was. And she is at risk at losing everything. So you got a little difference in what they have to lose, their own philosophies in this. Now, granted, she wasn't the one that committed the crime. She wasn't the one that was driving, but she's still an accessory. She still covered it up. So she still has something to lose at this point. At the time, maybe not. At the time, she was just a passenger. She didn't do anything wrong as far as that actual crime goes. But now, an accessory. Covering up the crime, fleeing the scene of an accident, all kinds of other things. However, their laws are written over there. And she can't have that. She's like, her future, the life that she has is more important. And she makes a decision to cover up that crime that they committed 15 years ago by killing the driver who wanted to spill the beans. Things happen. In order to cover up that crime, she ends up committing another and killing somebody else. And then she covered it up again by killing somebody else, and then killed somebody else to cover up that crime. Just a windfall of covering up, of committing one crime to hide another and to keep a secret. Holy cow. Like I said, this episode went a little dark. It wasn't like dark, but it was kind of dark. And towards the end, you have a witness from an unlikely source. And in the end, the cops do find out that it was her that did it, seen her crimes, and everything is found out. She ends up losing everything anyway. All that crime, all that web of lies, all those cover-ups, in the end, meant nothing. She would have been better off had she just left well enough alone and just let, the driver of the vehicle do what the driver of the vehicle wanted to do. In the end, it might have been better off for her. But instead, oh no, it was bad. It was very, very bad. Holy crap. But here's what I want to ask you, though. And this is a sympathetic, empathetic, kind of a thing, empathy, sympathetic, what have you, Yes, would you do the same thing that she did? How far would you go to cover up those crimes? And of course, we would all like to believe that in those type of situations, or at least in that type of the situation, I'm starting at the very beginning, the original crime, the original cover-up, we would all like to think that we would do the right thing, that we would, call the police and let them know what happened, or at least, something, We would all like to think that we would. Would you have made the steps to keep yourself out of it? Would you have, called the cops, fled the scene of the crime? How would you have handled that situation? And do you think you would have done the same thing that she did? Or do you think you would have done something different? Do you think you would have turned yourself in and done the right thing? Or what would you have done? And let's assume that you covered it up. Let's assume that one. How far would you go to keep that secret? To keep that crime covered up? How, at what point, let's say you were empathetic to what happened to her, how At what point during her journey in this episode did you go from, I can kind of understand what she's doing, you know, I can empathize with this, I got sympathy for her. At what point did you lose that and it's like, oh man, you know, you crossed the line? At what point did that happen for you, if it did at all? Interesting episode. The levels that some people are willing to go, you know, because here's the thing, you know, I can kind of understand the rabbit hole that she fell down, you know, psychologically speaking. I can understand that, you know, because once you go here, it's not too far of a cry to cross over that line just a little bit more. You know, the lines blur, especially whenever you're talking covering up a murder. The lines blur to the point to where you go just a little bit further, and then you go a little bit further, and then you go a little bit further. Next thing you know, your actions are in no way, shape, or form representing who you are. But because just keep going outside of what you would normally do, now you're so far past and so far gone. It's like, holy crap. Like, I get that. I mean, I really do. You know, I'm not saying I agree with what she did. Not at all. I'm not saying that. But at some level, I understand it. You know, it's that psychological thing. You know, I mean, it's that, you know, it's just, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. You know, where do you stand on something like that? You know, would you have been able to do the right thing? Accidents happen, man. You know, accidents happen. Would you have been able to do the right thing? At what point did she lose sympathy on her journey to cover up her crime? Holy cow. If you want to join the conversation, you guys can head on over to thehohoshow.com. Just click on the what is that? Forum tab. And there's, you can see the message board for this series, this season of Black Mirror podcast. Of course, you can put anything on down in the comments and I will read those. And then at the end of season 4, we will talk about those and go through some of those comments and just have a good old time, a little bit of a party at the end of this. The next episode isn't going to be Hang the DJ, because as you already know, I've done that one already. The next episode is actually going to be Metalhead. Looking forward to that episode. So that's all I got for you on this one. Intriguing episode. They kind of went a little bit dark. And where do you stand on some of that? Would you have been able to do the right thing or not? Interesting thought exercise on that one. No condemnation. Not at all. All right. Y'all just have yourself a great one. And that is all I got for today. See you next time. Thank you for listening to Black Mirror Podcast. If you would like to comment on this episode, head on over to Spreaker.com. And if you would like to join the discussion, head on over to thehohoshow.com, click on the forum tab, and join the discussion for this season. Until next time.